Welcome to Sojourner in Ecclesia. This is Theo. I just saw this poll pop up from Gallup, and I wanted to do a bit of a reaction video, even though I read kind of the first section on it of this conversation that's kind of happening within online, I guess you could say, Christian Twitter online groups, and about whether or not there has been an increase in young people attending church, and then also the idea that more young men are attending church. Is this bearing out in any of the polls and any of the data out there? So there's this poll from Gallup that just was released, and so I'm gonna kind of go through it and read it, just kind of get some thoughts and reactions out there. So, driven by recent increase, young men in the U.S. have now surpassed young women in saying religion is very important in their lives. Gallup latest data from 24 to 25 shows 42% of young men saying religion is very important to them, up sharply from 28% in 22 through 23. So there's about a 2-year gap, pretty significant percentage increase. By contrast, during this period, young women's attachment to religion has held steady at 30%. Although young men had previously tied young women in this key marker of religiosity, young men now lead by a statistically significant margin. The recent increase among young men also contrasts with minimal changes since 22 to 23 among older men and women. So this is the chart here. You can see the significant increase in men ages 18 to 29. So it's interesting here, at least my first initial thought on it is the question about religion. I mean, this has this doesn't define Christianity specifically. It's just a very broad-based question. How important would you say religion is in your life? Even some Christians can say, I'm not religious, I'm Christian. So there could be a myriad of, this could include people who think, like Buddhism and Islam and any other type of religion could be important to them. So this could capture a lot of different things. So I don't think we want to just narrowly say, okay, this is all Christianity, but most likely it is, because Christianity is the dominant religion in the United States. So it's likely that while other religions could play a part, it's most likely going to be a factor, and we'll see if the poll kind of does any type of other questions to kind of maybe break this out a little bit. So again, women 18 to 29 held pretty steady, 32, 29, 41%, and 18 to 19 and 51% in 2012 to 2013. So for women, it's actually been declining. Men, was at 43% in 2000 to 2001, and now it's kind of almost going back up to what it was at that point, which, I myself, that was when, I was really coming into my faith at that period in 2000, 2001, so it's kind of interesting. All right, let's see. With the recent surge in their attachment to religion, young men have returned to the high point of their expressed religiosity of the past 25 years, roughly tying the 43%, which we just looked at. By contrast, women of all ages, groups, and older men are at or near their historical lows. These findings are based on biannual aggregates of Gallup's religion data from 2000 and 2001, allowing for stable estimates across age and gender groups. Young women were significantly more attached to religion than young men were at the start of the millennium, leading by 9 percentage points. Yeah, so it was pretty high up there. And calling religion very important in their lives, the gap widened to as much as 16 points in early to mid 2000s before steadily narrowing over the next decade. By the mid 2010s, the difference had shrunk to about 5 points, and the two groups remained about this closely aligned through 22-23. Most recent data mark a clear break in young men now surpassing young women on this measure of religious importance. This reversal is unique to those aged 18 to 29. Among adults aged 30 and older, women remain more religious than men. Okay, so yeah, that's still wish these kind of had distinction, but yeah, it just seems women 65, yeah. So this is like 65 plus. This is mainline churches and UMC. But not completely. Yeah, I didn't see any gender difference growing up in a non-denominational church. To me, I was very lucky and blessed to attend a church where it was pretty spread out as far as, at least I felt, as far as age groups, the gender, the ethnicity, although it was mainly white and Hispanic, I guess I should say, but there was still a pretty diverse group in there, compared to going to UMC, which is very old, white, probably more women than men on some level, and yeah, so it's unfortunate that that's been my experience with UMC so far. I wish there was much more diversity within UMCs that I'm sure there are in other churches, but just the churches I've gone to. I'm not talking about UMC. I'm not making claims about UMC as a whole, but I have a feeling that that's probably a large majority of UMCs, but I could be wrong. And I'm willing to be corrected on that. See, young women. See. Okay, the percentage of young men saying religion is very important to them is now similar to the percentage of men aged 30 to 59, and only slightly lower than for senior men. Young women, by contrast, are now by far the least religious women. At 29%, calling religion very important, women aged 18 to trail the next least religious group, 30 to 49-year-old women, by 18 points or less, and half as likely as senior women to say religion is very important. So this is something that I think, us as a church need to address on some level. It was men, now it's women. I mean, how do we go about that? What are some things that the church can do? Yeah, so it's kind of interesting, and something that's important for the church. As it's been mentioned, I'm completely going to forget the person's name, the kind of famous person who does the analysis for religion. talked about that you want a balance in the church. You don't want any extremes of one thing or the other. You don't want a really young church. You don't want a really old church. You don't want a church that's just largely men. You don't want a church that's just largely women. You want a balance. You want, single people there. You want families. You want a cross section of the people that are in your community. You want to reach out to everyone in the community. That even goes to those who are on the margin. Yeah. So, anyways, you want a healthy church and the demographic area, but you want a healthy church in other areas as well. So let's see, percentage saying religion is very important in their lives. Even as young men have become more religious, there's been little change since then in the percentage identifying with a religious faith. And so this is the interesting part. 24 or 25, 63% of young men report specific religious affiliation, statistically unchanged from the 61%. However, this is up longer term from their low point of 57% and is the highest recorded for young men since 2020, even as young men have become. Okay. As the proportion of young men expressing a religious identity has been rising since 1617, the proportion of young women doing so has been decreasing, falling 6 points to 60% today. Given this, young men have had the slight edge in religious affiliation since 2021. Interesting. Meanwhile, religious identity among older age groups of men and women is now at or near its low point in the trend since 2000-2001. What is your religious preference? Are you Protestant or Catholic? Religion. Percentage who name any religion, so it's just any religion. Men have increased steadily. Women have been decreasing since 1617 pretty significantly. Okay. The gender gap in religious identity in 24-25 is minimal, with women edging ahead of men among those 65 and older. Age shows greater variation regardless of gender as identity levels increase with age. Interesting. Religious attendance. Gallup's key behavioral measure of religiosity. Self-reported attendance at church or other house of worship shows changes among young men that mirror the patterns seen for the importance of religion. The percentage of young men reporting monthly or frequently attendance at religious services rose 7 points between 22-23 to 24-25, reaching 40%, its highest level since 12-13. This followed a stretch from 16-17 through 22-23 when young men's attendance had languished near 33%. Young women's attendance has also increased modestly since 22-23, rising 3 points. However, the most recent rate remains far below the levels recorded in the early 2000s, contrasts the currently elevated level of attendance among young men. The latest attendance rates of older men and older women are at or near their trend lows. So, wish these were distinguished. But yeah, I mean everything everything's just going down in a sense, except for younger people, which is good. Yeah. Young men, young women are now statistically tied. Notably, young men are more on par with older men in religious attendance. Young women are with older women, further underscoring the divergence between young women and the rest of the population. Interesting. I wonder what the dynamics are here. That's kind of impacting. I mean, you're going to hear all kinds of theories, both on the left and the right, within Christianity about this. It's, yeah, I'm not going to even try to explore it until I've kind of thought about it more and actually read up, rather than just purely pulling some answer from somewhere and just making an opinion or a theory. I'd like to actually just think about it, hear from actual experts in the area. According to Gallup's monthly measurement of religious attendance thus far, 40% of young men continue to attend weekly or monthly, consistent with Okay, well, here we go. Growth concentrated among young Republicans. The gender age trends can be examined across other demographic variables. Young men's shed light on reasons for young men's shown no strong differences by education or region of the country. However, there are significant differences by party identification. The analysis examined attendance based on party affiliation. Independents who lean toward each party included with partisans, Republican leaners, Democrat leaners. This provides larger sample sizes than the unleaned party groups, as well as better reflecting the data whereby changes in party leaners' attendance over the past decade have mirrored those core partisans. More frequently than used by measure. It's more, I see. Since 2023, attendance has risen 7 points among young Republican men, 8 points among young Republican women, 3 points among young Democratic men. Only young Democratic women show little change. Okay, so 7 points young Republican men, 8 points young Republican women, 3 points young Democratic men. So even among young Democratic men, it's up. Young Democratic women, little change. Longer term, however, attendance among young Republican men has been trending upward, while young Democratic men's attendance has generally declined. The recent increase in young Republican women's attendance contrasts with no meaningful change among young Democratic women. So yeah, so the political aspect of this. I mean, my channel is not does not focus on politics, but politics is part of religion, and religion is part of politics. It's just the reality. Yes, I mean, Christians have tended to be Republicans lately, both coming from my non-denominational and even from the UMC side. I'm surprised at how many Methodists are Republicans. Even Methodists or vote Republican, even Methodists who you would think are on center left, or maybe even progressive. in the religion side, but yet maybe are willing to vote Republican for other reasons. So I'm not going to go too deep into the political side, but yeah, that's I think, based on religious faith and political views, if you want hope, there's a desire for something good to happen and not focus just purely on the negative or the bad. You would think Republicans are focused on negative and bad, especially with the current administration and current politics within the last 12 years or so. But Republicans, by have a hope, like in growing a family and focusing on having kids and keeping the family bonds together. I think Democrats have kind of missed that idea on some level, and haven't really spoken well to it in helping families and keeping doing whatever they can to keep strong families together while still allowing for not just trying to minimize women's roles and women in the workplace and that type of thing. So I think there's a way you can go about it, and so I think Christians who value those things, value those family values type of thing, will focus on the Republican Party, and young people kind of see that as well, young Christians. So, I mean, I was a young born-again Christian in my early 20s, and I was also a Republican. I was probably a Republican before I became a born-again Christian, which is, yeah, it is what it is. I'm an independent now, and still a Christian. So, anyways, I can see why there's that impact. And I think, this is something that I think the church needs to address, and I think the Democratic Party and all the different parties need to address on some level. So it's interesting. The interplay of gender, these partisan shifts affect the overall trends among young men and women differently because of the distinct differences in party identification. 48% of men identified as or leaned Republican compared to 41% who identified. Contrast among young women, only 21%. Well, 60% identified. Okay, so yeah, there's kind of the gender gap as far as yeah. There we go. Interesting, because this had kind of switched. So you're seeing this play out on some level also in South Korea, where young men have become more conservative, women more liberal, and there's all kinds of factors, and South Korea has its own certain situation with men having to serve in the military, women not really having the option to have kids and still work in the workplace. There's just all kinds of dynamics there within South Korea, which the U.S. doesn't really face. but I think there's some overlaps as well. So so it's kind of a interesting distinction there, given relative large portions of young men who are Republican, where trends have significant impact on overall trends, and even though young Republican women have also become more age, they represent a relatively small portion of all young women. As a result, the impact of change of okay, implications. The religiosity of Americans as a whole remains at a low ebb, but the importance of religion to people, their self-reported attendance, and their identification with religion all holding at or near low levels. So, still on the low side, yet young men appear to be an emerging exception to the rule. After years of declining religiosity, the percentage of young men saying religion is very important in their lives and reporting attendance at religious services rose significant amount. This resulted in a reversal of the gender gap among young adults, the importance of religion. Meanwhile, young men retain slight edge over young women in having a religious preference that first appeared in 2020 and 21. The finding that Republicans have driven heightened religious attendance among young men and that a similar increase has occurred among young Republican women suggests political dynamics may be playing a role in religious changes among the nation's young adults. Future Gallup polling will indicate whether this is a temporary phase or a lasting change. So, again, I think this is where I think the church is really falling short on this. I think politics has become a bigger pie of a person's ideology, and yeah, it's a bigger pie. It's always been a big pie for myself. I mean, I've always been a political person, a religious person. I've always been the person at a get-together who's willing to talk about both. Even when I was a Republican, even as an independent now, center left, maybe, maybe center right at times. So this pie in a person's ideology and life should not be significantly larger than, my view, the religion part. Especially as a Christian, your faith with God should be center in your heart, in your life, and that should inform all these other areas. But God is not a Republican. God is not a Democrat. Your religion should be challenging you in many areas. As a Republican, religion challenged me on the idea of helping the poor, and seeking peace. Those things that challenged my ideology. Now, being center left and center right, religion challenges me to look at family and how important family is to society and to people in the church and to God. But also like serving and seeking to reach the stranger, the person who's on the margin. Also challenging me in how important morals are, in our lives and should be important in the lives of our leaders as well, both the left and the right. You can see moral failings on both sides. So this, our faith with God should be, the Word is like a mirror. We should come to it and not leave it the same. It should challenge us. And that's what, taking time in the Word, taking time in Scripture, taking time with prayer with God should be doing. This should be this should be the bigger pie. The disciplines within the Christianity should be a bigger pie. Our community and our faith walk and our engagement with our community and loving our neighbor should be a bigger pie. The politics should not be feeding our religion. It's crazy that may be the aspect of this that's really playing into this, and politics should not be feeding the non-religious aspect as well, which I think in some sense it is. So it's really an unfortunate thing. I think that politics is playing this role, which I think is more toxic role and an unhealthy, unbalanced, significant proportion of people's lives, as opposed to our faith walk. And the church has fallen short in this, in engaging and so this is something I think we as Christians should pray about. Some on the religious right and conservative Christians are going to be super ecstatic and happy about this. I don't know if you should be. I don't know if be careful what you wish for in that respect, because this could play in another way that you may not be happy with. Again, this is politics, ebbs and flows, but our faith should be the bedrock. So this is interesting and helpful. Go ahead, check it out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you have a blessed day. Take care. Bye-bye.